achieve is actual gender
Okay.
equity because it benefits
Video.
not only women and girls, but entire societies. True equity requires systemic change, and so women's empowerment must remain at the heart of our global agenda. International organizations must wave a gender perspective into every strand of policy making. And that should be a result of effective participation of women and girls themselves. Electing a Madam Secretary General would be historic, but it must only be the beginning of a much deeper transformation. Madam President, the Pact for the Future sets out clearly what must be done to change our world for the better. I have mentioned only two of the many challenges we must confront decisively. But we can only succeed as a community if we accept that there is no future for humanity without a fundamental change. The mandate of the Global Forum for the Future would be to push towards such a change.
Okay. Change. Most of the talks that I've seen in the UN, they talk about change, but structural change. Like every single leader, most of them that are concerned, they say, no, this has to change, it's changing, we are in the process of a change. So let us not be naive. This is a critical juncture. What's gonna happen in this critical juncture is important. A critical juncture is a point in history in which you will have a new timeline, and depending on what is built, depending on what decisions are made to build the future, then the future will be. And the future, yeah, could one of the examples of critical juncture, let's say, in another setting, is the keyboard. The keyboard has is just placed in the way it is because it used to be mechanical, and that used to be the only accommodation of the keys in which the mechanical keyboards will work. And now we use the digital one, and we didn't change the keys in the positions that will be the most effective for our fingers. And now we have to deal with that. We don't notice it, but in politics we notice it, yeah, because we don't choose a human-like path in the age of AI, because AI has to do with this disruption a lot. Then most likely we extinguish humanity, and we create a new kind of being as humanity starts to perish and become more unconscious.
This is why it must be inclusive. It must not be merely a coalition of countries. It must inspire hundreds of millions of people. For when it comes to human dignity, the constituency of like-minded individuals is vast, diverse, and knows no borders. Human dignity is indivisible. We must fight for it no matter how great the obstacles are. And there are many, we know that. Think of hunger. Time and again, humanity rose across continents to confront the scourge of hunger, to no avail. Worse still, hunger is now being weaponized, turned into a tool of war. We receive reports on a daily basis of how women and children are starved because they are marked as legitimate targets, as enemies. How cruel, how inhumane is that, ladies and gentlemen? We cannot allow this to happen any longer. 40 years ago, musicians stood against hunger. Instead of guns, they, the Band Aid, used music. The world heard them, but they were not loud enough, as hunger has not been eradicated. Today, we have science. We can address on a scale beyond imagination not only hunger, but every act.
Okay, we got science, we got AI. We have for first time one of the causes of war. War sometimes is created because a group needs resources. So it needs to, or results to attack, to steal. But we have overproduction. As I say, for since 2019, they push me every night hunger, so I will overeat. And that's the reality. They can use this technology to make me or make people feel hungry and make them overeat. And they did it. If that's not torture, tell me what it is. But for every single night, for 5, 6 years now, it's not that much. It's still happening. Very subtle. It's very noticeable, but it's not as frightening as before, because before I was just holding my head and going in fetal position, and I could, if I wouldn't, if I know, if I will not eat like 3 times or 3 meals or something like that, then I won't be able to sleep. And that's how I was tortured for about 5, 6 years almost. 5 years or so, every night. So, um, and it's the duality of let's say, no, but it's because the seroquel. No, even if I don't take the seroquel, they push hunger. So, but they will always blame the seroquel. But it's impossible that seroquel gives you that amount of hunger. Okay, I met other people who use seroquel and they don't suffer in the same way. And they did that to my body. Because they can. Not because I'm an enemy, not because I was against anything in special. It's just because they can. So it's this idea of domination that she's talking about. Like, is this the only thing we can do? We are in a critical juncture. It's like we're gonna be judged depending on what we do today.
Act of violence against human beings and all human fears. Granted, science, technology.
Yeah, but my point is that was in Gaza, yeah, people is dying because they have no hunger. There is people in other parts in the world that are pushed to eat until they cannot more, and that's another way to kill them slowly.
Technology and global connectivity are too often twisted by cynical leaders and warmongering regimes. But they can also be harnessed for the common good. Artists, influencers, and visionaries with audiences of millions can join forces with the governments of like-minded nations. Together, their voice in defense of humanity could become irresistible. Together, we, can demand real action by all governments, all world and community leaders on the pact for the future, and hold to account those who betray human dignity to its very core. Through
Notice that she say we, and by we is we all who believe a better future is possible. There are systems of powers in which not. This is about power. That's it. It's whoever controls. But you know, people united, countries united. That's power. Yeah? And it's individual people, and that the power is done by people who is united, and yeah, that's it. The other thing is called domination, which is violence. Power and violence are different. And when she says we, you're gonna notice that there is a lot of hell other leaders that are calling for the same thing. Is so far I have heard about 6 species, 7 maybe 8, not completed. All of them are calling for the same thing. Okay, let's keep going.
wars of aggression, genocidal policies, and crimes against humanity. If we join forces and make ourselves heard, nobody can ignore us, not even the most arrogant governments and individual politicians.
Okay, That's important. That is important.
And make ourselves heard, dignity to its very core, through wars of aggression, genocidal policies, and crimes against humanity. If we join forces and make ourselves heard, nobody can ignore us, not even the most arrogant governments and individual politicians.
If we join forces, that simply, you want a better future, human, with a direction that is human-wise? She's not the only leader that is asking for that.
Of course, such initiatives cannot emerge out of thin air. They require leadership, strong, inclusive, and fearless leadership.
Okay, and that's the problem. That's why United States has no leadership. The United States leadership is disappearing. United States is dominated by force. When you are a leader, you have a place where you want to go. When you are a leader, you have clear values. It's not through domination and through violence that you keep whatever situation going for purposes that only satisfy yourself. Leadership is not noticing what people want to hear and throwing that back to them. Like, that's a kind of political cancer. Leadership is truly to dare, to guide, to take, to steer, to pull towards a future. And yeah, that future has also a goal. It's not an endless goal like perhaps Israel. Israel is this idea that technically the whole Islamic world are terrorists. Israel wants to go first for Gaza, then Lebanon, Syria, and yeah, God knows what happened after. And this is obvious. But I'm talking about this idea of Zionism. It's not the idea. It's not the Jewish tradition. Actually, we're gonna have a lot of fun hearing Netanyahu in another video, because the Jewish culture is a culture that is they are ethnic Jewish, culturally Jewish, religiously Jewish, and the academic tradition is the one that I admire the most. Look, it's like, yeah, I was reading today Hannah Arendt, Erich Fromm. It's just mind-blowing, this academic tradition. And nowadays, again, the Jewish academics have to do the same, as create a kind of critical school that is not outside the Nazi regime, but outside a current fascist regime. Again, they have to do the same. This Jewish academy. Okay, let's keep going.
We, the leaders of today, are only transient custodians of power. Some of us may not be here after the next election, but that is precisely why we must act now. Our responsibility and destiny will be judged by how we treat our planet and its people today. We simply cannot afford silence, ignorance, or passivity, not while we hold power and possess the power of the word. Hesitation is not an option, Madam President. For most of us, members of the UN, is not might that makes right. It is the opposite. We must not allow the powerful few to ignore us. We must not surrender to a world where power alone prevails. We, the majority of United Nations members, must be role models. We must work for a different world. The Global Forum for the Future can be a platform for the much-needed transformation in which partnerships with non-state actors and companies are indispensable. Profits must finally serve development for all. Innovation and sustainability must drive tolerance, mutual respect, and inclusive dialogue.
Who was that guy who said that every single technological advance that is not in pro of humanity is just a waste of time? Not a waste of time, but it's just evil. And it could be a good way to define what is evil technology. It simply doesn't work for the betterment of humanity. It's evil. Because to believe that everything will be solved with science is a kind of fascism as well. It's called scientism. And it's to believe that everything has to be measured and fixed in that way. And that's what they are doing with my brain. It's like a thought police. It's a fucking thought police. You cannot think something because they're gonna binge you with the specific voices, so you stop to think about that. So that state of flow in which you are able to divagate, to think, to reflect as a philosopher, technically is taken away from you. So yeah, I've been asking a lot this question. I hope to solve it one day, but it has been months or about a year. But if focus, if concentration, if to stay, to put your mind in something is a moral act, then what does it mean to not allow someone to focus in an automatized way? If the act of focus is moral, what does it mean to take away the possibility of someone to act morally? What does it mean? Yeah, but no morally good, no morally bad. It's like you cannot act morally. You cannot exert yourself, your persona outside. What is that? Yeah. The mind never asks to be exposed to others. The mind precisely wants to stay in secret for yourself. And that's the characteristic of it. Secrecy. It's your mind. Your mind makes the privacy of, of, of what you think.
Is that too much to ask? If we, the leaders of this planet, can offer nothing but terror, conflict, pollution, fear, inequalities, and war to 8 billion people, then we must confront the truth. We are complicit in crimes against our civilization and our planet. And not just us, heads of states, but leaders of international institutions, CEOs, and every individual with the power to make a difference share this responsibility. None of us can claim ignorance of what is at stake. If we believe in human dignity for all, we must deliver more. A world that fulfills lives, not threatens them. We must say yes to inclusive multilateralism and a resounding no to multipolarism. Let us show that this General Assembly can and will make a difference, as it has often done before. Let us demonstrate that we reject arrogance, hatred, and willful blindness to a lack of equality and justice, to wars of aggression, crimes against humanity, and genocide, because they tear us apart for generations. And let us proclaim in all seriousness and sincerity that we embrace personal and collective responsibility to uphold humanity, sustainable development, and international law, because this will keep us together as a civilization for generations. And Madam President, let me end on a personal note. For the sake of future generations, to fulfill our responsibility as human beings to ensure that we are on the right side of the history, we should do the right thing. We did not stop the Holocaust.
I like that quote. You want to be in the right side of the history, you gotta do the right thing.
We did not stop the genocide in Rwanda. We did not stop the genocide in Srebrenica. We must stop the genocide in Gaza. There are no excuses anymore. None. Ladies and gentlemen.
Look, I think one of the reasons I got targeted is because I took one photo with the flag of Gaza as well. It must have been part of it. It must have been taken into the political calculation to do that to me. I took one photo with the flag of Gaza, and I was holding the son of a friend. It was something like, okay, we weren't there because of Gaza. I just asked, we were for another situation, and then I asked my friends, hey, what is this thing about? And they told me, no, about Gaza, Palestine. And I was like, okay, yeah, I heard about it, but I don't know what to say. Was totally, let's say, totally uninterested, not politically involved in that. So I was like, okay, what's the deal? But I remember that the questions that I did were simply enough. The questions that I did when they told me with facts, other things that happen, I thought, okay, this is a no-brainer. We should be helping Gaza. I don't regret, but I didn't know that you could be target for your political beliefs. I think at that time I was living with an Iranian, and I didn't know the conflict between Iran, proxy guerrillas. I didn't know the problem of most of the time that you try to support Palestine, you could be supporting Hamas without knowing. I didn't know anything of that. But I took one photo, and that photo goes into the digital sphere, and that's enough for someone to say that you're a terrorist. And that's I think that was part into the calculation to try to push me for a long time to hurt people, but they couldn't control my mind. Remember that that's what they tried to do initially. First, they attacked me cognitively. I wasn't able to do much. Then they tried to push me to attack people, but they couldn't control my mind. Just as the guy who killed the refugee from just as the guy who killed the refugee from Ukraine. That guy was diagnosed with schizophrenia. So that guy most likely has been attacked. Okay? But that guy didn't know, he didn't know the things that I know because I read and I study a lot and I know myself sufficiently to know that what I was experiencing was external. But if I would have done anything violent, they would have shown my picture with the flag of Palestine online, in the newspapers everywhere. Does it make sense? Okay, I leave it there.